journey that led to this book. The experience of a traditional Buddhist 3-year retreat by a modern American woman. Modern American woman. Sounds like a term that could have been written in the 1950s to advertise the newest Betty Crocker cookbook. But truly, we bring all of our culture and history and habitual thinking to our spiritual paths, which is, I think, one of the things that makes the idea of this book so interesting to many people. That the author is a real person of this time and place who's made this ancient journey. So to read my account is to read something reachable and immediate, even to find out if it might be something doable for oneself, as compared to reading Tibetan Namtar's histories of enlightened people, which, though inspiring, are mostly of the idealized variety and therefore can feel much more remote. So in this book, you get the Ufda moments, the oh no, not that again moments, the anxiety, the healing, momentary confusion, frustration, humor, along with aha moments, sublime experiences of nature, of breakthroughs and joy, and ultimately a sense of direction, that the voyage across the unfathomable made sense after all. This book is for me the culmination of the retreat itself, almost a tangible fulfillment of the retreat, and one way that the years spent there might benefit others. And so there's a sense of relief I have in its publication. Last year, I was leading a 1-year course based on Stephen Levine's book, A Year to Live, How to Live This Year as If It Were Your Last. Our group had a great time together and delved deeply into the material and many related issues and exercises, one of which was to examine if there was something important we felt we needed to do before we died, and then to set out to complete that. Well, for me, publishing this book was it. And over the last couple of days, since I sent out the announcement about the book, I've been very aware of this with a new sense of freedom. Anything that I accomplish from this point on is extra. Ah la la. So, let's see, I'm going to drink some water. I want to share a funny story about how this book was born. It turns out prematurely. On February 23rd, before the publication date was even decided upon, I learned from a bookseller in Seattle that she had already bought a copy for her shop. What? I just about fainted. I knew Amazon didn't have it available yet. For one thing, because bookstores don't deal with Amazon in any shape or form. So I knew it had to be through this other company called Ingram, the outfit that prints and distributes only to stores. I went onto my Ingram account to see what in the world was going on. Yes, I had unknowingly at some point flipped a switch that made the book available. Then I checked to see how many had been sold. Not only had 36 copies already been sold to bookstores, but 17 of those were in France.
Bravo.
And 6 in Poland, and 1 in Australia, and 12 in the USA. I about fainted again. At that point, I realized I better get on the ball. The baby had birthed itself when I'd apparently been asleep. It had jumped onto the back of a galloping horse and was halfway across the plain. Hey, wait for me! I'm your mom, back here! I hadn't felt quite ready, and yikes, the website wasn't even live yet. But there's nothing like a kick in the derriere to get things moving. So I decided to use March 1st as the publication date, giving myself 1 week to launch. and have been going full tilt ever since, as you can imagine. Sometimes the world decides for you, and in this case, I'm delighted. I wanted to talk a little bit about some hesitation I had about writing this book. The container of a serious Buddhist retreat is sacred, and one is advised not to talk about it for some time afterwards. And then there's the question of ego involvement in the act of publication. Of course, most Americans wouldn't think a second about that. But in the Buddhist context, the ethics of no self reach into this territory. And so I seriously considered this question. But here we are again with the modern American woman. And in this case, one who considers writing a form of art. A friend the other day sent a snapshot of his beautiful abstract painting that he had just completed, writing these words, quote, "Creativity and art keep me right here," unquote. I wrote back to him this: yes, the creative process, full of bliss. I'd like to get back to that aspect of writing, which sometimes goes into that deep level of creativity. These last few years have been more the crafting part, and most recently, marketing, etc. Sometimes I've wondered about the ego involved in publishing a work of writing, investigating my motivations. But then I remember that there's nothing strange about wishing to show one's paintings or performing music for an audience. So I decided to take the artist's viewpoint, and I've just gone ahead. So thank you for hearing my confession. I hope the Dakinis will understand, and onward. However, beyond art, I pray fervently that the book will benefit others and will be of interest to fellow Buddhists and the wider world, to those interested in contemplative life and depth psychology, and armchair travelers of the inner ocean, which might be all of us who are here. So before going on, okay, more water. Before going on to read a bit of the book, I want to acknowledge the many people who assisted in a variety of ways, both before and during retreat. They are all named at the back of the book. It's a long list of wonderful people, as well as the people who read drafts of the book and gave advice and encouragement. My gratefulness goes to all of them, or all of you. Some of you are here in person. Especially, I'd like to thank Za Kilung Jigme Rinpoche, who encouraged me through the retreat time and time again, who is an authentic Vajrayana and Dzogchen master with pure bodhicitta intent. How very fortunate to be his student. Okay, so that is my talk, and now I'm going to switch over to doing a little bit of reading from the book. So I hope everybody is doing well out there. And by the way, this is a first for me, doing a book reading. This is it. Okay, so the first passage that I've chosen is, well, let's see. It was written in October of 2012, I believe. Anyway, it was one year into retreat. And I wrote it while I was down in Williams, Oregon. It was at a retreat center of 300 acres. and up way high up in the Siskiyou Mountains, very beautiful and remote, and yeah. So, and I saw a lot of wildlife, and that's what this passage is about. "2 days ago, I was sitting in some high woods on a fallen madrona, a still and deep place. Through the trees, 2 weasel-like creatures, martens, appeared. They were running around, checking out all their little places. After a while, I could see only one. He was coming in my direction, so I started to make some quiet noises so he wouldn't get too frightened of me at the last moment. And I didn't want him too close either. Quite large animals, beautiful, like sea otters of the land, alert, moving fluidly with infinitely flexible spines. I've seen deer a few times. I recently scared the bejesus out of 3 who were feeding right outside the back kitchen door when I swiftly emerged on my way to the outhouse. Their sudden getaway scared me, too. I had to stand there for a moment and let out a large whoosh of a sigh. I counted 25 vultures in the sky the other day. Carrie said one time she counted 60. Lots of jays here, too. Recently, while meditating in my chair on the porch, a small squirrel came running into view, checking things out. He suddenly leaped through the blue fence surrounding the carp pond, ran to the pool's edge, flipped himself upside down, apparently going for a drink, while still hanging on with his toenails. After a moment, he ran off. Last night, I heard an otherworldly, weird sound, high-pitched. I could only think of a cougar, or someone else being made into cougar's dinner. Somewhat chilling, as it was in the direction of the patch of ground where I pee at night. Lately, while in the woods, or even in my room, I've had these experiences of deep stillness that go on and on. I realize how quiet it is, and then, half expecting something to interrupt, it doesn't. Instead, the quiet continues, lengthens, and I go deeper, to a deeper place inside. Then I become aware again of the quiet, and it continues, and I go deeper again, relaxing to a new level of inner quiet and rapport with this exterior quiet. It's a kind of listening and hearing the quiet. It's not totally silent because it's the woods, but so quiet it's profound. It's almost waiting for something, like the empty matrix, shunyata emptiness, pregnant with possibility, to open up in front of me. At any moment, a tree branch could fall, a corvid could caw, an iridescent beetle could fascinate by, a helicopter could fly overhead. But none of these happen, and that continues to unknot my mind while I sink more and more deeply into a relaxed state, releasing the outer world too. I think earlier I may not have been ready, but regardless, I'm here and ready now. That is the end of that one. So the next passage that I have for you is about 6 months later, so it's about a year and a half into the retreat. And I had gone after a couple of months in Williams, Oregon, in the Siskiyous. I had gone back to San Juan Island and then returned again to Williams. So this little part here that I'm going to read is it's written about, I wrote this years later while I was putting the book together. And I have many passages like that throughout the book. They're in different type, so you can tell when you're reading it, you can tell the difference of when I'm writing in the present voice, right? That's what I was calling it. And so this is one of those sections about the process of transitioning from one place to another place, because I transitioned about 8 different times during the retreat, which is quite a few times, but yeah. Okay. These transitions come with flurries of activity, arrangements, social interactions, and travel, stimulation of all sorts. I am by nature happily social and normally had unlimited capacity for all of the above. But now, having taken the hermit training of retreat, it was a different me out in the world, ultra sensitive and heart open, absorbing it all as wondrous and welcome, and also as onslaught. For example, while zipping past a person walking by the side of the road from inside the car window, I would look deeply for an instant into their face and maybe exclaim out loud, "There goes a human," sending loving energy as if they were my long lost cousin, which ultimately they are. I knew how it would seem, the amusement caused for whoever was driving me. They must at times have felt they were caretakers for someone on a psychedelic trip. My driver and I might then laugh, but my experience was always genuine, not made for entertainment. The aftermath of shifting places was exhaustion. So the next passage I'm going to read is about 6 months later from that time, and I was now on Bainbridge Island, and it's November 25th is this entry. Yeah. Cloud images during morning practice. A sky-spanning angel with huge wings unfolded up around a chubby cherubic head, Italian style, topped by an Ushnisha, the expanded summit of a Buddha's head. Then a huge mistiness coalesced, with mystical potentiality in the center to which I felt connected, as if my mind had some effect. And suddenly a dragon appeared there. It had at first the head of a lioness, then eventually a traditional head of an Asian dragon. Above that then descended more clouds in the form of an immense quaquetal thunderbird, facing south, a typical elongated side view. Thunderbird, the Northwest Coast indigenous dragon. So here they were, appearing together, 3 winged spirit beings from 3 continents. This unfolded over an hour's time. And the next entry was on November 28th, which was Thanksgiving. Today, a thick fog muffling the expanse above the sea, muffling even the sea itself. No wind, no little ripples upon the water. The sea, like a slumbering giant, inhaling, exhaling, soft and slow, the breathing of a deep, dreamless state, barely perceptible. The body of the behemoth swelled as the sea edge receded. Then the inevitable exhalation, and the gentle surf came forth to my feet, so quietly, not even a snoring sound of pebbles washing back and forth. Somebody wrote that they wanted to see the book cover. There's the book cover. Mm-hmm. There's the back of the book. You can't really read it, but there's writing on the back. Okay, so the next entry I'm going to read is a few months later, on January 16th, and this is also on Bainbridge Island. Yesterday, full moon. In late afternoon practice, I got up during mantra recitations to untie some knots that had wedged themselves around my heart center. I went outside into the quiet and calm evening, just after sunset, to see if I could find the rising moon. Sky clear, few clouds, sea flat. Wrapped in shawl against almost freezing air, I stood at the oval window that I'd recently pruned through to a view of the sea, the distant shore, and the sky. I stood below the cedars and the eccentric pine, watching, waiting for a long time. No moon. I went back in to warm up, then back outside to moon-gazing window. There she was, rising behind a jagged mountain, orange, radiating brilliant reflection of sun. I watched the earth turn in the heavens against our neighbor, our one lady lunar retinue. I felt our own earthly body suspended in space, turning in the vastness. Awe-inspired, I finished practice, happy to take the moment to go outside of prescription, happy to follow the arc of the moon through the house window later while preparing dinner, happy to find myself standing at the kitchen counter singing out loud, "Cold December fled away," a Catalonian Christmas carol. It was so spontaneous, and yes, December is fled away. So let's see. Okay, more water. Okay, so I'm going to read one more passage. Yeah. Okay, so this next passage is also on Bainbridge Island, and it was a reflection. So every once in a while, when I got to a point in the retreat that, like at the 1 year point or the 2 year point or something like that, I took a little time to really think, how is it going? And then I would write a reflection about that. So this is a reflection at the 2 year point. And actually, technically, it was at the 730-day point, because I also took breaks in the retreat once in a while. It was recommended. Keeling Rinpoche said you should take a retreat every couple of weeks or something, and so then I wouldn't count those days. So that's why the retreat was 2.5 years or 3.5 years instead of 3 years and 3 months. But anyway, that's a technicality you probably don't need to hear about. But all right, so this is the 2nd year reflection of January 25th. As a little gift on this 2nd year completion day, I found a rather large agate on the beach. The bright sun at winter's low angle made it glow against the more mundane beach pebbles. Still cold, barely above freezing, but the unobscured sun's rays warming, lovely. A lone heron for a long time was standing in shallow water, fishing. I stood nearby, a lone yogini, hands resting on staff, meditating. A pair of beings, looking out together to the sea and the eastern sky. I've been thinking of the little boat out in the middle of the ocean on this voyage, looking back toward the east, the direction that got set in those childhood dreams. I see I've covered a distance of 2 years. The shore hasn't been visible for a long, long time. In a way, a lifetime. But I can still recall the shore's shape, its smell, its familiarity. The surface of the ocean has held every kind of formation: calm undulations, slow eddies, glistening ripples, reflections of star, moon, and brilliant sun. Also, choppy whitecaps, stormy swells, cascading waves to disappear in, and typhoons with giant whirlpools from which I barely escaped. All that is now behind me, and I turn forward to the west. It no longer gives me nausea to look down from inside my tiny boat to the unknowable depths, to realize that I'm still quite far in the middle of this great ocean, this epic inner journey. The far western shore is still beyond easy reach. If I called out, no one would hear me. I don't know what the depths of the ocean will stir up between here and there, and yet I feel content. I don't know if this state of acceptance is due to having crossed an imaginary midpoint in that journey, or if it's just that I've grown accustomed to being out here. Either way, whatever it took, I'm grateful. In the middle and yet arrived, cutting a path but leaving no trail, bobbing along in the immensity. In all this time, it's been barely a month that I've been able to go really single-handed. I've been on my own in most ways since the beginning, but a lifeline has been some communication with others through phone or email. It was clear that I needed that. Originally, I never imagined that I'd be on solitary retreat these 3 years, since it's most common to do a first 3-year retreat with a group. But circumstances prevented this. So, to give balance, stability of emotions, and of psyche, I communicated in some form with someone almost every day. Then, a couple of months ago, I suddenly felt ready to go solo. Now, here at Margie's house, safe and sound, at the turn of the new year, I dropped that stabilizing anchor, and without any problem, it's been smooth sailing. I'm finding myself to be happy, stable, and disciplined. My days are full. There's not a part of the day or night that I dread. Every day about the same, ocean and more of it. But the interior world offers much to chew on, to observe. And then there is the turning of the earth in the starry sky, Jupiter to track in the eastern twilight, the rise and fall of the season, the surprise of flowering bushes in midwinter, the hubbub of hummingbirds, cries of eagle, sand messages on the strand, and meditation of heron in still water. And actually, I'm going to read one more tiny little thing. It's an aspiration at the end of the book, and something I wrote on retreat, and I'm just going to kind of sum up with this little aspiration. My wish for all of us is that our imaginations of what is possible expand in such a clear picture, with such confidence, that the pathways open up and we're drawn in without effort, like water mixing with water. And thank you. So, yeah, thank you. So I want to, we now have about 10 or so minutes for questions, if people would like. So what Bruce is here as the Zoom master, and he will unmute anyone who would like to ask a question. And so if you would like to ask a question, down at the bottom of the screen, you should see a thing that says reactions. And if you click on that, then comes up this other little thing that says raise your hand or something like that. And so you click on that, and then you will pop up to the beginning, and we'll be able to see your picture. So if you have a question, if anyone has a question, Ruth. So let's see how this works. Ruth, you're still muted. You have to wait for, let's see if Bruce can unmute you.
You can unmute yourself.
Okay, Ruth, you have to unmute yourself. All right.
I'm trying to understand exactly what your writing process was. Like when you made those descriptions of the animals, the description over an hour period of the cloud formations. Were you taking some kind of notes throughout the day? Or did you have a special time at the end of the day when you wrote some of these observations down? How exactly did you work?
Thanks, Ruth, for that question. So I did not have a special time of day. I did not write every day at all, not at all. I usually wrote in the evening though, when things were quiet. I mean, when my schedule had quieted down. But I was free to write anytime basically. But no, I wasn't taking notes all the time. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that I actually even remember. It was different from time to time, and I didn't have a method. And by the way, when I was on retreat, and I wasn't thinking I was going to write a book. I wasn't thinking this was for a book or for anybody. I was just writing because I'm a writer, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, Erica.
I would love to say, congratulations, Diane. Fantastic job. You've birthed this baby that you didn't know you were pregnant with, even better. And, some of us got some little preview, I think maybe halfway through of some of your writing. So just to say, it's so fabulous that this is out now. And so when my question is is not really a question as yet, but I hope that as you take the book into the world, you find lots of opportunities to read and record your reading, because you read beautifully. And frankly, I would like to just sit here for the rest of the next few hours just listening to you reading, much rather than I would pick up the book and read it. So I love to be read too. So whenever that seems relevant, read. It's so beautiful.
Thank you, Erica, so much for all of that. And I actually, I have two friends who are very close to being blind and really want to read the book. And so I have in my mind that I am going to make a recording of the book. Yeah. So this year, so it's an aspiration of mine to do that. And I will certainly let everyone know if when this happens. Yeah. Thanks so much, Erica. Yeah. Oh, Shanti has a question.
No question. Just echoing Erica. So evocative. I have the most awesome feeling listening to you. You really did convey, a feeling that I just admire. that you went through this and did this and can share it with us. So super good feeling I have listening to you.
Thank you.
Really nice. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's see. Kathleen has a question.
Thank you, Diane, for sharing your experience. You mentioned in your talk that you weren't going to, you didn't need to share some details, and yet it was some of the details that I was looking for in that, in the schedule that you had during the day. Was there specific study time of the Dharma? Were there special, if you can share, you know, that schedule during the day that you followed, what was different about it other than a deep meditation and awareness of your surroundings?
I'm not sure. Okay, so in the book, there are at least two times or maybe three times that I put my daily schedule in. There were times that I had when I was reading Dharma books, and I had a very specific schedule. I was busy. I mean, it was a busy time. And by the way, I mean, there's so much to know about doing such a long retreat. They're almost like technicalities or something of like when you first enter retreat, you have to enter very, very gently and have a very relaxed schedule and not do so many sessions. And then you kind of add gradually as the months go by. But yeah, so and during 3.5 years, it's a long time, right? And so there were specific practices that I was accomplishing. So I would take hours of the day to do specific practices, and then other hours when there was where I was doing meditation sessions. And then other times when I would take a walk, just about every day. Or I did a smoke offering, a fire puja, not an elaborate fire puja, but a small offering, a smoke offering every day. Like, for people who don't know what that means, it would be like smudging. You probably have heard of Native American smudging. Yeah, and I would do that every day. I did that like for the first 2.5 years or something. So yeah, I don't know, but I don't know, Kathleen, if that is answering your question. And you're muted right now, so I'm not sure. Okay, good. Thanks. So I think we have just time for one more question. And I want to well, hold on for 1 sec. There's one of my girlfriend Wendy has a question. What's your?
So, looking at the broader picture of going on a journey like this, you're really going against our culture, and especially as a woman, putting yourself center in your life rather than taking care of the people.
Oh my God, wait, hold on for 1 second. Wendy is asking such a wonderful, interesting question, and they're not hearing you.
Okay.
Do you want to come around?
Sure.
And say this? Because it's really actually a beautiful question, and I think people would enjoy hearing this. Yeah.
So what you're doing as a woman is really going against our Western culture, where women are here to take care of other people, their family, their friends. And in a way, you put yourself and your spirit ahead of that. You made a place for it in your life, which is a very brave thing to do. How did you deal with the people in your life that may not have wanted you to do that, that wanted you to be there Christmas Day and Thanksgiving and for their birthday, because you have a lot of those people in your life. So as a woman, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a big question. It's such a, yeah, this is actually really interesting. And, you know, the Jungian psychologist Robert Johnson wrote a book, I think where he wrote about that very much. And I think it's in his book called She. I'm not positive, but I think so. And I happened to read that while I was on retreat. And he talks about women who have a calling. Like, not everybody has a calling. Not everybody has to do this, you know. But for women who do have a calling, that they need to go off, they need to spend this time by themselves and not being the helper for a period of time. And that it's very important to not get dragged back into like feeling guilty or something. You know, exactly what you were talking about, Wendy. And I'm sorry, it's been almost 10 years since I've read that book, so I don't remember exactly what he wrote and the advice that he gave, but it was significant, and I believe that I might have referenced it in my book also. But I did specifically get, permission from my family to go away before I did go away. It was not easy. It was very hard for them, and that was very often one of the things that was the most difficult for me about being on retreat was, thinking about my young granddaughter, who I missed terribly, and who I wasn't, around for during those years. And my grown-up kids were, grown up, so they were fine, but they missed me a lot too, and I missed them too. Now now we're getting into more discussion. I think what I want to do right now is we're at the time of ending this session, the Zoom session, and we can continue in person, David. Yeah, I love that question, and I loved I